You hear that? It's the sound of your friendly neighborhood Civil War Widowmaker. What? Oh, you don't know about these beauties. Time to open your eyes. Meet the Spencer and Henry rifles, which along with the Sharps carbine are collectively known as repeating rifles, or more specifically, lever-action repeating rifles. But how did they work? Well, they both operated by leveraging a breech-loading mechanism, meaning they loaded from the back of the gun rather than the muzzle. This allowed for much higher rates of fire than muzzle-loading muskets. In fact, the Spencer fired 7 shots from its tubular magazine buttstock at a rate of 14 to 20 rounds per minute, while the Henry fired 16 from its underbarrel tube at 28 to 30 rounds per minute. Both rifles also used rimfire cartridges, meaning they ignited the propellant charge via a percussion cap that sat on the rim of the cartridge. The Spencer fired the mighty 56 to 56 rimfire, which packed a punch but was not as common as the smaller 44 Henry rimfire. However, the Spencer required manual hammer cocking after each shot, whereas the Henry's hammer was cocked automatically during lever cycling, giving it a slight edge in rate of fire. Other advantages: the Henry had included a higher capacity and a much more accessible reload. While the Spencer had to remove its entire magazine tube from the buttstock to load, the Henry could be loaded from the front. However, this left its exposed magazine slot vulnerable to dirt, while the Spencer's sealed buttstock kept its ammo dry and accounted for its higher rate of fire. Additionally, the Spencer had a bayonet mount, something the Henry lacked entirely. The Henry, however, did have a stronger rifle caliber round, though its 216-grain bullet was still weaker than the Spencer's 480-grain ball. In terms of overall dimensions and weight, the two were fairly similar, though the Spencer was slightly longer and heavier than the Henry. You can find a full technical comparison in the description. Well, we've got all that firepower. How come neither side adopted these bad boys as their standard issue firearm? Well, the answer is a bit complicated, but we'll try to summarize it real quick. Basically, the Spencer was initially rejected by the Ordnance Chief, James Ripley, in 1861 due to its high cost, $40 compared to the $18 muskets in use. Additionally, he deemed the rifle as a waste of ammunition. However, after personally test-firing it in 1863, Lincoln overruled these objections and ordered 100,000 to be produced, and let's just say that number is conservative. By 1865, over 200,000 had been manufactured. Some of the most famous actions involving the Spencer include Hoover's Gap in 1863, where Wilder's Lightning Brigade held off a Confederate charge with volley after volley from their Spencer rifles. And then there's Gettysburg in 1863, where Union cavalry decimated Confederate charges, with one officer writing that the enemy columns melted away before them.